Hello again. Let's take a glimpse into Viper Strike Pathfinder build. Viper Strike is one of the most powerful, but rarely used, poison attacks. It's a melee strike skill, which may discourage a lot of players right from the start, but its damage and poison duration make up for the short range. There are also Pathfinder's keystones to help you with clearing and bossing. Master Toxicist will make your poison spread on kill, which works in a similar way to the explosions of Herald of Ash. With a poison mastery for 300% increased damage with the first stack of poison, and unspeakable gifts, you can easily clear an entire screen of tightly packed enemies with one strike. Nature's Reprisal will increase your damage, Nature's Adrenaline, DPS and mobility. Nature's Boon will get you much needed flask charges. These will be needed as the poison takes up some time to ramp up its damage, and you don't want to run out of Witchfire Brew in the middle of a fight. A single poison instance can last close to 30 seconds, dealing millions of DPS each. Attacking 7 times a second with such a setup will melt any boss. The hit and run tactic may be good, but investing in durability will result in more damage too, allowing you to stand still, take hits, and stack poisons. Viper Strike's poison duration is not affected by a default, fixed value, but it rather has a separate base duration of 4 seconds that is affected by skill effect duration modifiers such as exceptional performance. Another quirk of Viper Strike is the usage of both weapons at once instead of alternately. The defensive capabilities of this build can vary a lot. It's possible to implement some well-performing combinations of unique items to make up for its melee nature, such as Brass Dome, Loreweave with Transcendence, or simply tons of maximum life, spell suppression, chaos resistance, and evasion rating. Clear speed is good, but it depends on enemies' density. You can use Plaguebearer if that's up your alley, we didn't. Single target damage is good, but due to it being a melee poison build, you will struggle with most of the endgame bosses anyway, as they are very mobile or have invulnerability phases. Price varies from very cheap to very expensive. It's capable of reaching 5 million DPS with the cheapest items like 2 wasp nests, and 30 million with the proper gear. There are plenty of unique items you can choose from. We've used only Solstice Vigil, Replica Soul Tether, and Circle of Nostalgia, but even these items are optional. We recommend reaching 100% spell suppression chance, capping all of the resistances, and using Grace for evasion. To mitigate physical damage, you may want to forfeit Herald of Agony to get Determination, and invest in some items with armor. Aim for 5,000 maximum life. If you have Transcendence Keystone allocated, use Loreweave body armor for fixed maximum elemental resistances. It's one of the ways to make a character quite durable but leaves you vulnerable to physical hits. The Covenant is an extremely powerful body armor that adds level 29 added chaos damage to your main setup. You need to have a decent life regen with it, you may be forced to ditch Blood Rage. You can use Replica Feral's Fur for endurance, frenzy charges, cat's buffs, tons of maximum life, armor, evasion, and onslaught. It all saves you a lot of trouble, but it's very expensive. Brass Dome grants you a lot of armor and maximum elemental resistances. Its 4,000 armor mitigates a quarter of physical damage. With Determination, it will get you over 10k armor that cuts incoming damage in half. The Wasp Nest is an excellent claw that may serve you up to level 80 or 90. It has all the necessary stats in substantial quantities, and it's dirt cheap. You're using only one type of ancestral totem. Use Dawnstrider boots to boost your attack speed and have the effect of these totems linger. It's a very good option. If you plan to use Ghost Dance, which requires high evasion or better yet, dodge, use Replica Soul Tether Belt for a much more energy shield. With Solstice Vigil, Temporal Chains has no reservation if cast as an aura. Maximum life and increased damage are all great modifiers. Shaper's presence causes effects on you and nearby allies to have a 20% slower expiration rate, meaning long-lasting poison. Impresence, Chaos, is very similar to Solstice Vigil, but here it's the Despair that can be cast off charge. It adds some chaos damage, increases damage over time, and grants Maddening Presence, reducing action speed and damage of enemies by 10%. The only difference between a full power variant and a regular presence is the ability to host another blasphemous curse for free, Temporal Chain for instance. It's too expensive for this build in our opinion. Despair can be easily applied with Witchfire Brew. Circle of Nostalgia grants additional bonuses when you are affected by the Herald of Agony. Preferably look for increased chaos resistance and Herald's buff effect on this ring. Militant Faith is required in order to convert one of your keystones into a Transcendence keystone. That is if you want to combine it with Loreweave. Useless in any other case. Watcher's Eye is one of the best jewels in the game, used by the majority of the builds. You want Watcher's Eye with Malevolence modifiers, preferably damage over time multiplier on it. On your rare item seek maximum life, evasion, resistances, and suppression for survivability. For damage, chaos damage over time, poison damage, attack speed, and some special mods on gloves. Keep in mind that regular attack damage or critical strike mods are pointless. Getting some strength or even intelligence may be necessary. A rare helmet is the best possible option for this build. You can get high defensive stats here, extra accuracy, and possibly an affix that reduces the chaos resistance of nearby enemies or increases your mana reservation efficiency. Use 2 Gemini Claws for life, mana recovery or Void Fangs for extra chaos damage. You want an Elder, Hunter base with increased chaos damage over time multiplier from poison applied, and extra chaos damage added. Dual wielding these weapons will significantly improve your damage, but choosing a shield is fine too. Rare body armor is a well-balanced pick you may use for maximum life, resistances, spell suppression, increased effect of auras, and the ability for extra curse such as punishment. Seek some extra movement speed and defensive stats on your boots, like maximum life, resistances, and spell suppression. Gloves. +1 or 2 to extra targets from strike skills is a great hunter prefix or Searing Exarch implicit. Other than that just get extra life, resistances, and possibly chaos multiplier, attack speed, or accuracy, and all combined make it a very expensive item. For a belt, we recommend preferably a Stygian Vice for an extra abyssal socket and high defensive stats, or some Flask modifiers, as you're quite reliant on them for damage or survivability. You are looking for a life, chaos multi-amulet. There are plenty of other stats you can find here, so just look for stuff that you are missing, like attributes. On the rings, aim to fix all your resistances and attribute needs, as well as gain extra life, attack speed, and accuracy. Despair on hit may be useful. You are most likely going to use a Stygian Vice, so you will be able to use an extra Abyss Jewel. It's best to look for one with bonus life, a chance to gain an onslaught buff on kill, and some accuracy. On regular jewels, you want extra maximum life and attack speed, chaos, or poison multiplier. You can also get some resistances and attributes here as well. Large Cluster Jewel. Unholy Grace, Unwaveringly Evil, and Wicked Pall are great if you want to get more damage. Unspeakable Gifts grants a 10% chance to explode enemies on kill. Medium Cluster Jewels offer a wider range of more useful modifiers. You can get more damage, Wither debuff on hit from Eternal Suffering, or Wasting Affliction to speed up poisons. Witchfire Brew grants increased damage over time and curses nearby enemies with Despair, which is a good way for you to apply a curse in this setup. As Pathfinder it should be easier to have it up most of the time, but challenging nonetheless. Elixir of the Unbroken Circle can be used in combination with Transcendence and Loreweave to generate endurance charges and to replenish life on use, taking the role of the life flask. For other flasks, we've selected Silver Flask for an onslaught buff, Jade Flask for evasion, and Quicksilver or Quartz Flask for movement speed or phasing with spell suppression. These should stop bleeding, increase attack speed, movement speed, and evasion rating. Viper Strike is the primary attack in this build. It has good damage on paper, but to flourish it needs a stationary target like Delirium or Metamorph bosses, or you can try to forage the Poison deals damage faster mods. Link it with Multi-Strike, Deadly Ailments, Unbound Ailments, Void Manipulation, and added chaos damage. If you're using the Covenant, switch the last one for melee physical damage support gem. Swift Affliction also may be good if ramping up the damage takes too long. Ancestral Protector boosts your attack speed, and in this case, will also apply Withered debuff on enemies. Use Phantasmal Gem. Link it with multiple totems, Withering Touch, and faster attacks support gems. If you don't have mana, use Life Tap instead of faster attacks. Malevolence is the best DPS aura for DOT builds, which greatly increases your damage output, and opens up various options on a Watcher's Eye Jewel. Use Grace for more and increased evasion rating. In some cases, you may want to swap it with Determination for more armor instead, or maybe even use both. Herald of Agony increases your chance to poison enemies, and the damage you deal with it. The Crawler is not very useful. Link them up with Enlightened support, it increases mana reservation efficiency. It may not be needed if you're willing to invest in reservation efficiency on your gear. Steelskin is a guard spell that mitigates incoming damage and stops bleeding. You may want to pick Chaos Golem for its 5% additional physical damage reduction, it's great with Loroweed. Cast when damage taken will automatically trigger linked skills after taking a certain amount of damage. Link them with Life Tap if you're low on mana. Temporal Chains is one of 2 curses used in this build, the other being Despair from Witchfire Brew. It lowers action speed and makes poison expire slower. If you're using Impresence, Chaos, Full Power, with Temporal Chains and Despair, use both curse gems here to have them as auras. To do so, link it or them up with Blasphemy and Arrogance support gems. Withering Step is a mandatory movement spell for this build that grants you the elusive buff and applies extra withered stacks to nearby enemies. Blood Rage increases your attack speed and makes you generate frenzy charges on kill, increasing your damage even further. Enhanced Support increases the Blood Rage's bonus attack speed and the effectiveness of the elusive buff granted by Withering Step. It's optional, you might lack sockets. Whirling Blades is the recommended movement skill for this build. It lets you progress faster through areas. Defiance Banner increases armor, evasion, and reduces the critical strike chance of nearby enemies. Kill all the bandits for the 2 additional skill points. For a major god, we recommend the Soul of Solaris for additional physical damage mitigation and durability during one-on-one fights. Soul of Tukahama is a minor god that can get you up to 9% of additional physical damage mitigation, which is often very useful. Soul of Gruthkul may also be chosen for a similar effect, but it requires taking hits. In the passive skill tree, we recommend allocating poison and chaos damage nodes. There are quite a lot of them on this side of the skill tree. Your other priorities are maximum life, spell suppression, and evasion. Remember to allocate Whispers of Doom, Charisma, Exceptional Performance, some accuracy, and Chaos Resistance if need be. For keystones pick Mage Bane, Ghost Dance, and maybe Acrobatics if you have too much suppression. Other great addition to his skill tree would be Life Raker, Poisonous Fangs, Toxic Strikes, and Swift Venom's notables. For masteries, allocate both maximum life ones as life masteries, Chaos DOT multiplier per Chaos Resistance and increased effect of Withered as Chaos masteries, more skill effect duration as Duration mastery, increased poison duration, poison deals damage faster, or increased damage against non-poisoned enemies as Poison masteries, increased skill effect duration and ailment duration as Damage over time mastery, any resistance and ailment protection mastery, and grace reservation efficiency as evasion mastery. That's it. Like and subscribe. Bye.